You know, I've been following a fascinating debate among preachers on social media platforms about preaching to camera, which is so very different from preaching to a live audience. So I thought I'd do a quick piece to camera about this. Personally, I started several years ago with devotionals and training materials, and lately I've been recording bespoke materials for churches who are moving their services online. And I quickly came to identify with the preachers who find this a less than comfortable mode of preaching. At the start, I just felt it was so unnatural. So let me offer you a couple of tips and a couple of theological reflections that I hope will help you in your ministry. The first tip is give yourself a good setup. Simple things like clean up your lens gives you a much sharper picture. Prop your device up at eye level. And that avoids peering down into a laptop, which can actually give the viewer a direct line of sight up your nose. I find it helpful to position myself so that the light is behind the device I'm recording on and facing me. I can support it on a box or a pile of books in a window. That usually does well. And try and have an uncluttered background, a background that's out of focus and doesn't contain any bright lights like other windows. Those sorts of things draw attention away from your face, and you want your face to be the thing that is dominant in the frame. And the second practical tip is give yourself a good speaking position. When I started doing this, I used to sit down at a desk, but I soon came to feel this was really unnatural. So now I speak to camera, standing up in what is actually a bedroom, and imagine in my mind's eye a congregation I love surrounding the camera. You might like to use your favourite notebook. Sometimes I put a smiley on my notes, or even write down the camera to remind me not to look too glum. And then a couple of theological reflections. The first thing I think about when I'm doing this is whatever else we might say about COVID-19, it did not take God by surprise. And therefore his promise to Isaiah still stands. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and don't return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish that which I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. So God's word is not limited by the vehicle which carries it. Let's face it. Who in the days of the Bible could possibly have imagined the printed page? And again, who in the days of Caxton could possibly have imagined the internet? And yet God's word is still being carried. God's word is not limited by the vehicle on which it's mounted. And our contemporary social media are just another medium of communication that is a vehicle of God's word. And we are the purveyors of that word. And then a second theological reflection is this. God is on our side. Coming back to Isaiah again, in 61, he said, "The Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor," or the powerless, "and to bind up the brokenhearted." And that, I believe, applies as much, if not more now, than it did a few months ago. I find it very moving to realise that the book of Philippians, which is arguably the Apostle Paul's most encouraging letter, was written from a lockdown, and a lockdown that's much harsher than ours. So my sisters and brothers, carry on preaching it, and God be with you. And I hope that helps.